right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November Park and Rec Commission meeting. Thank you for our commissioners in attendance and our other city leaders and guests. We have a full agenda today, so we'll get started. We don't have any new introductions, but the agenda for the November 13th meeting was sent out ahead of time in our packet. Would look for any comments, recommendations on the agenda, or approval.
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 3, meeting minutes. Again, these were sent out in our packet from the meeting held on October 9th. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review them. Would look for any comments, recommendations, changes, or a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the October 9th meeting minutes. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 4. Also included in our packet was the monthly activity report from Park and Rec leadership. As you can see, still a lot going on despite the weather getting cooler in terms of programming and updates with our parks and other facilities. This is an opportunity, if there's any questions for Director Schmitz or Assistant Director Corman, please, let's review those right now. If not, we'll file this report with the packet. Hearing nothing on the department activity report, that will be filed with our meeting minutes. We're on to item number 5, City Council recap. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. As usual, there were 2 City Council meetings since our last Commission meeting. The October 17th City Council meeting had nothing particularly related to Park and Recreation. The November 7th regular City Council meeting and addendum involved the first reading of the 2018 fee ordinance, and then they authorized resolution and certificate of approval from the state of Minnesota finalizing our local option sales tax into law. Also, they issued a liquor permit to the Chamber of Commerce Green Mill at the Civic Center for a steel hockey game this coming Friday evening, the 17th of November. That's it for items related to Park and Rec over the past month at City Council.
Okay, any other questions related to City Council meetings? There was a work session, but I think we'll get to that here in our next item under old business number 6. Hearing nothing else on the City Council report, we'll move to old business. Renew, drum roll, please. There was no formal action taken, right, Dave?
But we're in the right direction.
We're in the right direction. Okay, so a couple handouts here as it relates to Renew, and thanks for everyone's support and patience. I don't remember what month we started talking about this at the Park and Rec Commission, but I'm going to place it at probably 2 years ago. We had probably our first discussion on what could happen, should happen related to the local option sales tax. Handout number 1 is stapled, and this was a handout that was provided at the work session last Thursday evening. That was attended by a few community leaders and members, as well as all of the city councilors. And on the first page, you can see an agenda of items that were discussed by the council during the work session, along with many of the audience participants. Page 2 on the back was a copy of an email memo that was sent back to our city attorney. And really, what this was able to validate for the council is that the city of New Ulm has a lot of flexibility in moving forward with the local option sales tax. Flexibility that we could refinance the current bonds if we were able to save interest, flexibility in that we could start one issue while a current bond was still being paid off, that we wouldn't have to kind of end or refund a bond before we would start new projects. And the timing as it relates to the reserve fund really wasn't a concern to bond council. So that was all good news for the city council members that really allowed us confidence to move forward, that there weren't going to be quite the trade-offs that we had anticipated as we kind of looked at this question probably 6 months ago, and even leading up to the approval of the local sales tax referendum. The last page in the packet was also a copy of an email memo that I believe was forwarded out to this commission some time ago, I guess in September, but just was a summary of the first work session and then some options that I thought could be possible for the city of moving forward, and some of that was revisited at the work session on Thursday. The other handout here, and I think there's extras if anyone in the audience is interested in receiving a copy, was I thought a summary of the work session may be helpful. So there were not formal minutes taken, so just be advised these are Toby's summarized remarks and thoughts related to the council work session. So the first thing is overall great news. Great news that we got the go-ahead to be able to proceed from Bond Council, and great news that there's strong support from the council. Although there was no formal action, there was strong support that moving forward with the Renew projects now would be favored rather than waiting a couple years till 2020 or 2021. So a summary, if I can go through this real quick in the interest of time. Bullet point 1. If you're not aware, today the city has about $4 million in that reserve maintenance account. By the end of the year, should be about 4.3. And even if we are very aggressive and make a lot of progress in the next 6 to 12 months, there should be at a minimum $4.5 million in that maintenance reserve account for the Civic Center, Vogel Arena, and the Community Center. So that was something we didn't want to jeopardize by moving forward with the local option sales tax. So that's good news. Number 2, based on the city budget for 2018, it appears there would be bonding capacity of $5 to $6 million for Renew-related projects. And the reason why there would be $5 to $6 million, to get the most favored interest rates, the city has a limit of $10 million of new bond issuance every year to become, I think it's called bank-qualified bond issuance. And based on their projections, they're looking at $3 to $4 million. So we believe there would be 5 to 6 made available for Renew if our projects are ready and bonding were appropriate. So that is good news, and the forecast appears that we should have enough bonding capacity to get those favored interest rates in the next 3 years, based on the city projections. Number 3, they had asked about project prioritization, and this is something we had visited about here at the Park and Rec Commission many months ago. But as we look to get started on project planning, number 1 was the Johnson Baseball Park, some details there as it relates to that project. And then an element that was discussed at the work session was the need for architectural engineering and construction management services. And I think, as you all realize, certain projects here on our list are going to be very intensive, and others maybe not as much based on what work has been done to date and the complexity of the project. So as you look at these, I would say there was some conversation. Tom was there at the meeting as well about number 2, the Dome facility project with ISD 88, and some questions about that project. And that is the one project on our list that isn't solely or 100% under the control of the city as it relates to land, facilities, operating. It will take some collaboration in figuring out that joint operating and use agreement with ISD 88. And quite honestly, we expect there could be some engineering challenges of retrofitting a site to accommodate a dome after they already built that facility and all the infrastructure based on a plan that didn't include a dome. So going back over that artificial turf field and kind of re-looking at that, still believe it has high potential and value for the community, but degree of difficulty may be higher than some of the other projects on the list. Third, the rec center was the indoor playground, fitness, and gymnastics. Based on our past surveys, this was a very highly rated project from the community. And I think if we run into challenges with the Dome project for even just kind of operations and timing, it would appear, at least to me, it would look for feedback from the commission here that would be a prime project to look at moving up the list from a timing standpoint. Number 4 was the aquatics and pool improvements. And I think we discussed that project at length as we were drafting these projects. And lastly, Herman Heights and the park project. Brian Grometz had mentioned, that depending on the bonding capacity, they would absolutely appreciate our Park and Rec Commission kind of going through the project prioritization, but at certain points in the year, it may make sense for, based on what funding's available, to relook at that prioritization. Meaning if there's $2 million of bonding available and one project doesn't fit within $2 million, maybe looking at a different project where the financing kind of matches the timing from city planning. At the bottom, kind of next steps, if you're wondering where do we go from here, I would expect some formal action to take place at the city council of moving forward on Renew and dedicating the resources to engage an architect, engineer through a RFP process. And there was continued interest in having strong community involvement. So I think the Park and Rec Commission, along with other community stakeholders, will play an important role as we move forward with moving from concept to actually planning, and the exciting part of Renew. And lastly, as I started, it's been a journey. We're not there yet, but I think if there's 8 steps in this process, we're at step 6, and it really feels really good to be at step 6. So should be exciting to move on to the next phase. So that would be my report or update on Renew. We've had it as a old business item for 2 years. Some months there wasn't a whole lot to report. I felt like, gosh, wanted to go through as much of that work session as I could. Commissioner and Councilor Dave Christian was there, as well as Director Schmitz. I guess I would look to both of you of any other updates, important items for discussion.
You pretty much summed it all up. It was all good news. The Park and Rec staff, from admin all the way down, are going to be busy real quick. As fast as they get some RFPs put together, we move forward.
Yeah.
Baseball, or the Johnson Park being number 1. And I believe we're going to set up a meeting real soon with School District 88 with all the stakeholders in it and get that process. I look for that one to bog us down the most, back and forth. But it's all good news.
Yeah, it was really a relief when we found out about that maintenance fund, of not having to deplete that before we start on kind of the extension. I think that was a relief welcomed by the council. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. The only thing I would have to add is that I agree the atmosphere and the discussion at the work session was phenomenal from the City Council in regards to supporting the projects and moving forward expeditiously. Just a reminder that they haven't taken formal action yet, and that formal action will be necessary for us to move forward. One other quick item on the discussions with School District 88. We've been in discussions for almost 2 years, and we have a framework established, but certainly the use and development agreement will need to be consummated before we put a spade in the ground or open the door.
Okay, so open it up for questions or any discussion on what has been shared related to the work session, or anything else related to Renew and next steps.
I'd like to just ask about the dome facility up on the football field at the new high school. I can appreciate that if it wasn't designed for a dome, that there may be questions about whether it's feasible. But I'm wondering, have we had some kind of engineering preliminary indications of this? Because up until now, I hadn't heard anything about it until I saw Director Schmitz's comments in the newspaper. That was the first that I recall hearing there could be some issues with compatibility. So I was wondering, where did that come from? Any professional indications on that, or?
Commissioner Sledadal, are you referring to the development of the site, the development of the dome?
As to whether it is compatible,
Yes.
or if the underlying surface soil can hold it, and all these kind of things.
With the discussion we've had in the past with the district, school district, and also the designer of the facility that they have now, the underground foundation with which you have to attach the dome to is not in the ground. So there will need to be some digging up there to create a concrete foundation to attach the dome to. It is, it's certainly possible and feasible. It might have been a little less expensive to do that initially, whereas now we've got the track in position up there and the grandstands, and so it's going to take a little extra work, a little extra time to put in the foundation and some of the infrastructure related to the dome. But other than that, the turf, the subsoil underneath the turf, that certainly, I think, will, benefit from being covered in the wintertime by the elements. Certainly, it will have more use, more feet to contend to, and with users on it year-round instead of just in the non-winter months. But I think this has been done before. It's not rocket science, and we're going to be able to have a quality product for not only the community, but also the region to enjoy turf activities throughout the winter.
Good question. Other comments, questions? Well, hold your excitement for a little while. We'll come back when the project planning meetings start. All right. We'll move on to old business item number 7, 2018 budget. Quite a bit of information was included in the packet. Look to Director Schmitz for updates here.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. You've had the preliminary budget in front of you for a couple of months now, and there's going to be a City Council work session in the chambers here at 5 o'clock today, in which they're going to look at some various elements and components. But nothing has changed over the past month or two. You have the information here in the action sheet and the packet of elements that are in the preliminary budget right now, and a few elements that are not in the preliminary budget. And so if you are so inclined, you could go ahead and endorse this proposed preliminary budget and request to the council that they adopt it. Or if you have any questions or comments, we can further discuss those now.
Yes, Commissioner Slaughter.
Question as to why was the controller for the Glockenspiel removed?
Well, because we had $455,000 of requests that the administration and the finance department also didn't feel would fit into the packet, would fit in with the limits. So you can see those 3 items that were taken off the table a few months ago, including the splash pad, Harmon Park field lighting, and $50,000 for the Glockenspiel controller. We have guarded optimism that the existing analog controller will last for another year. But it is certainly something that we should be considering in next year's budget if it does not get placed back into this year's budget for 18. I mean, we'd be looking at 19 if it doesn't go into the 2018 budget. It's kind of moving from analog systems to digital systems and reliability of those systems.
Okay, thanks for the question. Any other questions related to the budgetary items listed for 2018 or any of the detail included in the packet on the rest of the expense budget and revenue budget?
I just have one comment. I mean, you've got the whole list here. I don't know if everybody else had the chance to look at it, what Director Schmitz actually has in the capital outlay, because a lot of these items are not on there. Is everybody familiar with that? What you've got budgeted per proposal and discussion within an hour? I mean, you've got Harmon Park, 50, Herman Heights, the park improvement on the retaining wall, Mueller Park, 60,600, North Park, and Schonlau Park, and then machinery and equipment, and that's about it. That's what's in our budget, which will be discussed tonight. Not that there's confusion that, well, we okayed all of this. That is not what's in the preliminary budget.
Right. Some of this stuff in the action form here for the Park Commission is not capital development. Right. It's operational and projects that are not amortized, through the capital system.
So repair may show up in maintenance operating rather than
Yes.
as a capital outlay.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the Herman Heights, the big one on here is the Herman Heights retaining wall. Obviously, I think all of us know about some of the issues with that. Are you confident that that's a project for 2018 out of,
Yes, I am, in consultation with the city engineer
okay.
and the city manager.
Other,
On the tree replacement, is that scattered around throughout the city, or is it dedicated to some certain areas of the city? I guess what comes to mind is Center Street going up the hill, if the tree replacement is part of that area.
These funds could be utilized for park and trail improvements, trees in parks and trails. And Center Street Hill includes 2 parks, Steinhauser and Harmon. So we haven't, specifically said what species and what location we're talking about here. It's just, general improvement, shade for use areas for people, and then, of course, aesthetic in some areas such as the grand hill of Center Street.
The reason I ask about the Center Street is I believe 2 or even 3 years ago, it was a specific item of discussion at the Park and Rec that those trees were going to be considered to be replaced once it was determined what kind to replace them with. And so that's why I'm asking about that.
Yeah, it's still on the table and in the conceptual design phase with not only Park and Rec staff, but also the Tree Advisory Commission. That project will need to go through at least those 2 commissions and the city council, given its prominence in our community. So, there's a possibility we can get a plan approved and implemented in 2018 for the Center Street Hill, but at this point, we're not certain that will take place in 2018.
okay, any other questions or discussion on the budget? Is there a motion to recommend the city council endorse the budget as proposed from the Park and Rec Department?
I'll make the motion to endorse what has been before us.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend the preliminary budget as proposed here in our packet at the November meeting. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to the lightning round. New business. Item number 8, Director Schmitz, NRPA Physical Activity Grant Application.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This is just simply staff forwarding to you in hopes of you forwarding onto the City Council a recommendation to be able to apply for a grant to the National Recreation and Parks Association to train some of our fitness instructors in these various programs. There's more information in the action form here. But it's a relatively straightforward application.
Okay, great. Is there support and look for a motion?
I make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second to recommend City Council authorize application for the NRPA grant. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 9, EDA Kiesling Parkland. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. Some of you may not know, but half of Kiesling Park is owned by the Economic Development Authority, the housing department of the city, the southern portion basically, and so technically that's not part of the park. It's owned by the EDA. Basically from the sidewalk going up to the house from Minnesota Street to the south towards the Lamplighter, all the way from Minnesota Street to the alley. And now staff is bringing forth to you and ultimately to the City Council a request to have that ownership change from the EDA to the city and to formally make it a part of Kiesling Park. So you see in the action form some various components and elements and the attachments. The county values, estimated land value of the parcel is $25,300. Park and Rec is performing maintenance well over the past 5 decades, and it could go back to a century. I didn't go that far back into the archives, but you can see that an estimate of at least $25,000 from Park and Rec is put into groundskeeping and other aspects of that property. The attachment you can see in yellow is the EDA parcel, and the red portion is the city ownership, which includes the house. So this will have to, if you forward it on, it will also go through the city council and to the EDA board for discussions, negotiations, and ultimately, hopefully, a transfer of ownership. I have had meetings with our leasee at the site, Kathleen Backer, and her historical group, and she fully supports this transfer of ownership from the EDA to the city Park and Rec Department.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any more questions or discussion? If there's support, we'd look for a motion.
I make the motion that we recommend to the council.
Okay, and we have a motion to support,
Second that.
and we have a second to support city council authorize the city manager to attempt purchasing the property adjacent to Kiesling Park. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, Niels Park Trail snow removal. Again, Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. We have had a request from users of Nels Park to perform snow removal on the recently paved trail within the park. And you have some information in the action form here. It's approximately 43/100ths of a mile loop. It's the fitness trail, and it was further improved through cooperation by the Park and Rec Department and the Public Works Department. And the leader of the neighbors and park users that are requesting this is William Peterson. You have in the packet 2 pictures of sections of the trail and William Peterson's request in writing via email. So, as you recall, the bicycle trail is being plowed and having snow removal as per your recommendation and city council approval over the past year or 2. Adding this to our route, so to speak, will not adversely affect the budget. There's no significant large amount of expense to remove snow from the Nels Park Trail. Any questions? It's not just used for fitness. It's used a lot by people of all ages, including parents with children in strollers and people just for walking. People that don't necessarily utilize the fitness stations, but appreciate having a stable path with which to exercise, breathe fresh air, and gaze down into Flandreau.
Hardy people, yeah. That right. Well, I'm just glad someone's interested in being active out there. Any other questions or comments on this request from Director Schmitz?
I think too, anything we can do to make it more available to be outside for people in the wintertime is worth it. And so I'd move adoption.
Okay, we have a motion
I second.
and a second to recommend the city conduct snow and ice removals on the paved fitness trail in Niels Park. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, winter heating of Riverside and Kiesling Park buildings. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I'll just synopsis this topic here, abbreviate, paraphrase it, and that is that CCMR, Coalition for a Clean Minnesota River, has the lease and has for quite a while at the Riverside Park building. And as part of the lease, they need to pay for utilities. CCMR has not been, they've been basically turning the utilities off in the winter, the past number of winters. And the building official and others have become aware of this, and we have a concern that preservation of the structure and its foundation might be improved by having a modest amount of heat in the building. I've discussed this with the executive director, Scott Sparlin of CCMR, and according to the lease, they do not have to heat it. They have to pay utilities, but they do not have to heat it or air condition it in the summer. And Mr. Sparlin has told me that if he's forced to heat it in the winter, he can't afford to do so. CCMR cannot afford to do so, and they will move towards termination of the lease. And so there's that information about Riverside Park. Now, I also want to point out that we have another lease arrangement in our Park and Rec system, and that's Kiesling House with Kathleen Backer and her historical group. And she has been heating the house modestly in the winter, even though she doesn't use it, Kiesling House. But she has told me that if the city is going to be taking over expense of heating the Riverside Park building, that she will make the same request of Kiesling House for the city to take over heating of the Kiesling House. So you have before you a little bit of information. We have records on the Kiesling House, approximately $200 a month during the coldest months of winter for heat. And no recent records of utilities and heat at the Riverside Park building. Staff has reviewed this, and we have systems. There's an electrical heating system in the Riverside Park building, and we can modestly heat the building to 45 or so degrees. And the building official has recommended that and stated that that's a sufficient temperature. Any thoughts or questions?
Actually, I'm going to put my comments in. Being an building official with the city, I actually was the one that requested this to come on to here. I mean, once myself and President Schmitz learned that there is absolutely no heat in the building since the River Coalition took over, it's probably one of the worst things we can do to a historic building is not have a controlled environment inside the building. I mean, Tom, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we major tuck pointed the whole Kasota stone bottom, which was deteriorating, something like that. This year there were some rodents taken care of. They did tuck point the chimney area. It's just one of those deals. The city is the owner of one of the last old school buildings in New Ulm. I actually learned a lot of history where we just had these meetings down at the School District 88. I didn't realize there were that many old schools that were torn down and removed from New Ulm. The Emerson, the Franklin, I didn't even know those existed. I mean, we're the proud owners of a beautiful building down there, Riverside Park. The city has learned in the past the hard way when we let buildings go to heck, and it cost us triple, quadruple to fix them back up. I mean, one of the things that keep in mind, this Vision 2020 meeting that took place over a year ago, Riverside Park was one of the top 5, so our citizens do care what happens at Riverside. How can we better use of the park? I mean, one way or another, I want to see the building heated in the wintertime, and so does the Vision 2020, and it's in the best interest of the city.
Thanks for those comments, Commissioner. Are there other questions or comments? I guess I trust your professional opinion on the heating of the building. I also sit here and can understand that users that may not be utilizing these facilities during the winter months would be hard to pay $200 a month for heating a building without any programming or use or utility for, if that's what's happening here.
I mean, we did, I don't know if Director Schmitz, I know we're pressed a little bit of time. We did contact the city attorney about redoing the lease, if it's just to take it over during those November, December, whatever those months were, if you wanted to put that up or not. But it's just something we're gonna push to get done, that the building is some kind of climate control in the wintertime.
So would there be an amendment to those where the city would take responsibility for the winter months and the tenant or user would?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, modifying the lease will not be an issue or a difficulty.
Okay. So looking for support here from the commission?
I'd make that motion that we pay the utilities over the winter at a climate, keep it a good control.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
At
We're
both
looking at the heating or the utilities altogether? Because on here, because since they have it separated as one pays utilities, but they're not paying for the heating, how is that considered then? If we're paying the utilities, then technically we're paying, like, the whole, it all comes down to wording.
Right, and actually, anything else the city or the Park and Rec would like to have put in the lease when we redo the lease, that's what Mr. Hippard suggests. If you do want to really tweak it, now's the time to do it.
Right.
Yes, my other confirmation is that you're talking both buildings, both parks, or are you
Yes.
isolating just one?
Both.
Okay.
Okay, so there's motion and second to recommend the city pay for winter heating or utilities, or did we clarify that? Are they different?
There will be a modest sewer and water expense, but very minimal because they're not really being used
Okay.
that way.
So I would
I
assume.
believe that's just the base charge, correct?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
So I
we
assume
pay it
we're-
regardless.
So I assume it's for
Utilities.
utilities. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to Herman Monument Holiday Lighting. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. The Herman Monument Society is interested in having holiday lights emit from the windows in the upper dome of Herman Monument. Herman Monument Society Board Member Dennis Warda is spearheading this project, and staff has reviewed it. We don't have an exact detail about how much it would cost or how we would do it. But the Herman Monument Society, if approved, has said that they would fund the entire cost. And it could be as simple as putting red and green Mylar over the window, over the interior of those windows, and not touching the lights at all. You know, the lights emit their natural white color, but just tint the windows up there. And we have no concern, since it's simply lighting, that the State Historical Society will have a concern.
Okay. Thanks for the update. Any questions, discussion on this one? Look for support.
Move adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to recommend the city allow the red and green light from the Herman Monument during the holiday season. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Surplus sedan.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I am requesting that you forward this on to the City Council to have them authorize disposing of and declaring surplus a used car, used sedan that the department no longer has use for and was a hand-me-down from another one of our municipal departments, the police department. So it's just a formal step that we need to move forward, in which we would auction it off on a website, and it's valued at $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I see young Mr. Griebel smiling back there. He thinks this is his next car, I believe. He's getting his license anytime soon. What do you think there, Melanie?
I don't know, we'll see.
Okay, all right. Donations, just a couple here to approve. Director Schmitz?
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. We have 2 donations offered to the city this past month through the Park and Recreation Department. The first one is $1,500 cash from the Optimist Club to be used towards Days of Play. And the second one is $3,144 from Happy Tales Dog Park Group to go towards funding the water infrastructure, the drinking water at the dog park. I recommend you forward these on to the city council for their acceptance.
Great projects, all right. We have a motion of support.
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to recommend to the council to accept the donations for two good projects. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Getting close here. Item number 15, Adams Park Trail Fat Bikes. All right, thanks for a picture, Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. We have a 2/3 of a mile loop trail in Adams Park, a natural base. It's actually river bottom sand. The pedestrians love it. It was cleared recently by Glenn Howell, Eagle Scout candidate. It's a fantastic trail through the woods and along the floodplain, flood bottom river. And it's also a perfect type of surface for fat bikes. Fat bikes are a relatively new phenomena of extremely wide rubber tires that work best on snow and sand. And so I would recommend that we duly designate this as a multi-use trail for not only pedestrians, but also fat tire bikes. You have in the packet the map of the park and a photograph of one such bicycle.
Okay, thanks for the update. Any more questions?
Are there any other types of new bikes or any to put in with this? Not that it has to come back? Or just,
No, I
okay,
don't
we're just
think
being
so.
specific with, no, not that regular bike, fat
Yeah,
bike,
you
that's
won't
it.
be able to go
Okay.
on this trail with a narrow tire bike. You'll be
Oh, I-
carrying the bicycle. You'll be carrying the bicycle through the trail.
I'll watch you.
Okay,
I would
So-
have bike too.
we'll have next year during the tour, we'll get out and do a have Director Schmitz do a demonstration for us. So. All right, can I receive a motion for support?
I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to recommend the city designate the trail for allowing bicycles to share the trail with pedestrians. Any more discussion?
Is it gonna be the same multi-use, just so it's not motorized then, if there's so there's not four-wheelers?
No, it'll be non-motorized, of course, yes, yep.
Thanks for the clarification. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Outstanding. On to item number 16, South Park 18th Street signage.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I have a request from you to forward this on to the Safety Commission and ultimately the City Council to install two cautionary signs on 18 South Street in South Park. I'll go all the way down to the page 43 of the 44-page packet. You have the photos, an eastbound looking photo and a westbound looking photo at the narrow section above the creek on 18th South Street in South Park. And you also have in the packet the proposed sign that shows a bicycle above a pedestrian. This is on the bike circle route and also a well-traveled road for pedestrians to access both the east and west side of the park and utilize the newly renovated disc golf course. So I recommend you forward this on to the next bodies.
Okay, thanks for the summary. Would look for questions or a motion of support?
Partially off subject, but have they ever thought of doing a three-way stop there to make it safer for everyone?
That will go to the Safety Commission, and that's something that they will review at their, with their board.
Okay, other questions? If not, would look for a motion of support.
I make
Move
that
adoption.
motion.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Motion second to recommend the city install a cautionary pedestrian and bicycle sign near the narrowing portion of 18th Street South. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to item number 17. Don't believe there's action to be taken on this, but Director Schmitz had included in our packet the current terms for our commissioners. So a couple of you were highlighted on here for a term that is ending at the end of the year. So expecting there'll be more discussion, conversation with Director Schmitz. Is anyone at the end of a term limit?
I am.
It appears Commissioner Prochnick is coming up on 2 full terms.
Sounds like a celebration and treats next month then.
Yes, yes, yes.
You buying? Just checking.
Hey, if
No.
I brought it up, I probably should offer
No,
that,
I'm
shouldn't I?
kidding you.
Yeah, no. All right.
And Commissioner Griebel and Commissioner Zongel should have conversations with the mayor and the mayor with them. And then another item on the December agenda will be to elect officers for next year. We have to do that in December. Chair and vice chair for the commission next year will come to you on the December agenda.
All right. Well, we had a full agenda. We have reports. Director Schmitz, anything that you would want to add other than what's outlined on the agenda and in the packet?
No, I do not have anything else to add that's not in the packet already.
All right. Any other commissioner reports for this afternoon? Hearing none, the next meeting, as Director Schmitz just indicated, will be December 11th here at City Hall Chamber, and will be at 4 o'clock. Any other business for today? If not, meeting's adjourned. Thanks for an efficient meeting.
Thank you.